I have full confidence in Catherine and William. Their judgment is sound, their loyalty unquestionable.
It began with a sudden pause in the middle of the grand celebration at Buckingham Palace. A moment so unexpected that even veteran royal aides reportedly froze in silence. Prince William had just stepped forward beside Catherine when a sealed announcement folder was quietly handed to King Charles. Within minutes, whispers raced through the palace corridors. Something enormous had changed. And according to insiders, the decision had been finalized weeks earlier in complete secrecy. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The celebration had been planned as a proud royal gathering, filled with senior royals, diplomats, military figures, and familiar faces from the old guard of the monarchy. But beneath the polished surface, there was a tension no orchestra, speech, or ceremonial smile could fully hide. Prince William's sudden movement toward the center of the ceremony did not feel accidental. It felt arranged, measured, almost too precise. Catherine remained close beside him, calm on the outside, but those watching carefully reportedly sensed that she already knew the moment was coming. King Charles, carrying the weight of both fatherhood and kingship, appeared deeply emotional as the sealed royal decree was placed before him. And in that instant, the room seemed to understand that this was not merely another royal tribute. It was a signal. It was a declaration. It was the palace quietly telling the nation that William's role was changing in a way that could not be reversed. Palace insiders claim senior aides had been ordered not to brief the press beforehand, a move that only intensified the shock when the announcement finally unfolded. No leaks. No soft launch. No careful media preparation. Just one solemn moment, delivered in front of the very people who understood its meaning most. And when Princess Anne stood firmly beside William, her presence gave the announcement a harder edge, as if the monarchy's most disciplined guardian was silently endorsing the shift. Guests allegedly reacted with surprise, then applause, but behind that applause was something colder and more powerful: recognition. Royal commentators would later describe the atmosphere as historic and deeply symbolic. But inside the palace, it reportedly felt even larger than that. It felt like a door had opened, one that had been locked for years, and Prince William had been asked to walk through it before the world was fully ready to understand why. Rumors began spreading almost instantly that this decision would reshape his future inside the monarchy forever. Not as a distant promise, not as a ceremonial gesture, but as the beginning of a new royal order built around duty, stability, and survival. But the announcement itself was only part of the story, because behind the applause was a private royal struggle the public was never meant to see. Long before the celebration lights illuminated Buckingham Palace, reports suggest tense conversations had already been unfolding behind closed doors at Kensington Palace and Clarence House. According to palace insiders, Prince William had quietly been taking on responsibilities far beyond what the public realized, and the strain was beginning to show. What looked from the outside like a polished royal calendar was, insiders claim, becoming something far heavier. A silent transfer of pressure, duty, and expectation. With King Charles still carrying the burden of health concerns and public responsibility, William was reportedly being pulled into confidential meetings once reserved for the monarch himself. Discussions about future planning, national confidence, Commonwealth relationships, and the delicate question no one wanted to say too loudly: how to keep the crown steady when its center appeared vulnerable. Palace staff allegedly began noticing the pattern before anyone else. William's schedule became tighter, his briefings became longer, his presence in sensitive rooms became more frequent, and Catherine, watching the pressure gather around him, reportedly became increasingly protective. Not out of weakness, but out of a fierce understanding that the same institution asking William to stand taller was also demanding more from the family behind him. She knew that every extra meeting meant less time with George, Charlotte, and Louis. Every added responsibility carried a private cost the public would never fully see. Yet Princess Anne, disciplined and unsentimental as ever, was said to support William's rise with unmistakable firmness. To her, this was not ambition. This was preparation. This was monarchy surviving the only way it ever had, by moving before crisis could expose hesitation. Still, not everyone inside the royal machinery reportedly welcomed the speed of change. Some senior figures allegedly feared that accelerating William's authority too publicly could create whispers of transition before the palace was ready to control them. Others worried that uncertainty itself was more dangerous, because a monarchy that appears unsure of its future invites speculation, division, and weakness. That was why the grand celebration became more than a festive occasion. It became the perfect stage to send one clear message to the nation. Continuity was intact, strength had not disappeared, and the next generation was already standing where history needed it to stand. Media insiders whispered that the announcement had been rehearsed more than once, its timing shaped with care, its wording measured to sound respectful to Charles while unmistakably elevating William. And behind every polished phrase was the emotional truth of a family learning that duty does not wait for comfort, peace, or perfect timing. It arrives suddenly, demands everything, and leaves no room for retreat. But while the palace prepared to present unity to the world, another conflict was quietly brewing inside the royal inner circle. As preparations for the celebration intensified, palace administrative streams reportedly revealed growing tension between competing royal factions. What should have been a straightforward announcement about Prince William allegedly evolved into a silent battle over influence, visibility, and the future direction of the monarchy itself. Behind the careful smiles and controlled briefings, insiders suggested that senior royals were not fully united on one crucial question. How much authority should William be seen to carry while King Charles was still on the throne? To some, the answer was simple. William was the future, and the future had to be made visible before uncertainty took root. To others, moving too quickly risked turning a proud celebration into something far more sensitive, a public admission that the palace was already preparing for a changed reign. That fear reportedly created a tense divide, not loud enough to become scandal, but sharp enough to be felt in every planning room. Princess Anne, however, was said to push with her usual iron discipline for a stronger framework around William, not because she wanted drama, but because she understood the danger of hesitation. In her world, the crown did not survive by hoping people would understand. It survived by sending clear signals before rivals, critics, or opportunists could write the story themselves. Catherine's role also grew more important in these whispers. She was no longer viewed merely as William's supportive wife, but as his closest strategic advisor, the steady voice who knew when to soften his instincts, and when to remind him that duty sometimes requires accepting a burden before the heart feels ready. Sources claim certain palace figures feared being quietly pushed to the edges if William's influence expanded too fast. And that fear turned the announcement into a quiet test of loyalty. Every seating choice, every briefing note, every pause in the ceremony planning carried hidden meaning. Palace aides were allegedly instructed to maintain absolute message discipline, because one careless phrase could have turned the event into a frenzy before the official moment arrived. Royal commentators would later compare the atmosphere to earlier succession turning points, when the monarchy had to balance respect for the present sovereign with preparation for the next chapter. Yet reports suggest William himself initially resisted the scale of what was being prepared. He understood the symbolism, he understood the responsibility, but he also understood the emotional cost of appearing to step forward, while his father still carried the crown. That was the hidden pain beneath the grand celebration. William was not chasing power. Power was moving toward him. And as the palace tightened its grip on the message, the event slowly transformed from a ceremony into a declaration that the monarchy was entering a new era, whether anyone inside it felt ready or not. But everything changed the moment King Charles finally stood before the crowd and opened the official royal decree. When King Charles finally began speaking, witnesses claimed the atmosphere inside the palace ballroom shifted instantly. The music stopped. Conversations disappeared. Even senior dignitaries reportedly leaned forward in silence, as the monarch delivered what many insiders now describe as one of the most significant public declarations of Prince William's royal future in years. Charles's words were measured, but their meaning was impossible to miss. He praised William's duty, loyalty, and unwavering service, not as routine royal politeness, but as a deliberate elevation before the eyes of the family, the establishment, and the nation beyond the palace walls. Reports suggest William was formally entrusted with expanded ceremonial and leadership responsibilities, a move that sounded respectful on the surface, yet carried the force of a historic turning point beneath it. For one suspended moment, the entire room seemed to understand that this was more than recognition. It was confidence being transferred in public, carefully, emotionally, and with the full weight of the crown behind it. Guests reportedly erupted into applause, but the applause did not feel ordinary. It carried relief, surprise, and a sense that something long whispered had finally been spoken aloud. Catherine, standing close to William, appeared visibly emotional, not because she was unprepared, but because she understood what this meant for the life they had built, and the future now pressing harder against their door. Princess Anne, according to those watching closely, was allegedly seen nodding with quiet pride, her approval acting almost like a seal from the old guard. For Anne, this was not spectacle. It was protection. It was the monarchy tightening its structure before uncertainty could weaken it. Palace insiders claimed the move had been designed to reassure the public that the institution remained steady, that Charles still commanded the throne. But William was ready to carry heavier burdens whenever history demanded it. Royal commentators would later call it a symbolic transfer of confidence, and that phrase spread quickly because it captured the strange power of the moment. Nothing had formally ended, yet something unmistakably had begun. William himself was reportedly caught off guard by the scale of support inside the room. He had expected duty. He had expected ceremony. But perhaps he had not expected the emotional force of so many people silently accepting him as the monarchy's strongest promise of continuity. Within minutes of the announcement becoming public, speculation exploded online, with every phrase, gesture, and royal reaction examined for hidden meaning. Was this simply a celebration honor, or the beginning of a larger transition? Was the palace preparing the country for a future it could no longer postpone? The official language remained careful, but the public mood moved faster than palace control. And as William stood at the center of the applause, the triumph carried a shadow, because every rise inside the royal family comes with a private cost that the world rarely sees. But behind the celebration and applause, insiders say the emotional impact on William himself was far more personal than anyone realized. After the cameras disappeared and the palace doors finally closed, reports suggest Prince William retreated into a private reception room alongside Catherine and a handful of senior family members. And according to multiple royal insiders, it was there that the true weight of the announcement finally hit him. The applause had been loud, the praise had been polished, and the public message had been carefully controlled. But away from the formal atmosphere, the meaning became painfully human. William reportedly understood that this was not simply another honor added to his royal life. It was a shift in expectation, a quiet but unmistakable demand that he stand closer to the center of the monarchy than ever before. Catherine, who had watched every moment with controlled emotion, allegedly became his anchor in the private conversation that followed, reminding him that duty did not have to erase the family they had fought so hard to protect. Her reassurance mattered because she knew the hidden fear behind William's silence, that every step toward the crown also pulled George, Charlotte, and Louis deeper into the unforgiving glare of public destiny. King Charles, according to those familiar with the exchange, expressed deep pride in William's readiness for future leadership, but even that pride carried a shadow. A father praising his son is one thing. A king preparing his heir is something far heavier. Princess Anne reportedly added the harder truth, the kind only she could deliver without decoration: duty comes before comfort. And in that sentence, insiders say, William heard the full voice of the institution. The monarchy does not pause because a family is tired. It does not soften because children are young. It survives by asking its chosen heirs to carry more before they feel ready. And William knew that better than anyone. Sources claim he felt torn between the rising public responsibility placed on his shoulders and his fierce private instinct to shield his children from becoming symbols too soon. Yet the announcement had already changed the atmosphere around them. Global attention on George, Charlotte, and Louis intensified almost immediately, because if William had been publicly elevated, then his children's place in the royal story had also become more closely watched. Royal aides allegedly began discussing expanded international duties for William almost as soon as the event ended, proof that the announcement was not merely emotional theater, but the beginning of an operational change inside the palace. New expectations, new journeys, new scrutiny. Every proud word spoken that evening seemed to open another door behind the scenes, and each door led William further into the role history had been preparing for him since birth. Insiders described the moment as the beginning of the next royal chapter, but for William it may have felt less like a chapter and more like a threshold, one crossed with pride, pain, and the quiet knowledge that there would be no turning back. But the deeper meaning behind the announcement wasn't just about Prince William's future. It was about the survival of the monarchy itself. For months, speculation surrounding the monarchy had continued to grow louder. Questions about stability, succession, and leadership reportedly dominated palace discussions. But according to royal observers, this massive public announcement was designed to accomplish something far bigger than celebration. It was meant to restore confidence in the crown itself. The palace allegedly understood that silence was no longer enough. In uncertain times, silence can look like control, but it can also look like fear, and the royal household could not afford to let doubt become the loudest voice in the room. William was increasingly framed as the steady future of the institution, not in a way that pushed King Charles aside, but in a way that told the country there was strength beyond the present moment. Catherine's presence made that message even more powerful. Her popularity, her calm discipline, and her ability to appear both royal and deeply human reportedly strengthened public trust at a time when the monarchy needed emotional connection as much as constitutional continuity. Behind the scenes, Princess Anne and senior advisors were said to support a stability-first strategy, one that treated William's elevation not as ambition, but as protection. This was not a family chasing applause. It was an institution trying to survive the storm before the storm could define it. Royal insiders claimed the event had been carefully timed for maximum symbolic impact, allowing the palace to shift attention away from scandals, divisions, and years of bruising headlines toward something cleaner, stronger, and more future-facing. The message was simple, but brutal in its clarity. The monarchy was not collapsing, not drifting, not waiting helplessly for the next crisis. It was reorganizing itself around the heir who had become the public face of continuity. Public reaction reportedly moved quickly in William and Catherine's favor, with many seeing the announcement as reassurance that the royal line remained firm, disciplined, and emotionally grounded. Yet the very success of the moment exposed the deeper tension beneath it. Because when a future king is presented as the answer to public uncertainty, every other figure inside the royal orbit is forced to confront their own place in the new order. Some rise with the change, others fade into the margins. Commentators describe the announcement as a controlled transition without saying the word transition, and that phrase cuts straight to the heart of the story. The palace could deny any dramatic shift, but the symbolism had already done the speaking. William had been placed before the nation as the steady hand, Catherine as the quiet force beside him, Anne as the guardian watching the structure hold, and Charles as the sovereign brave enough to show pride even as history moved closer to his son. It was victory and vulnerability in the same breath, a moment of public confidence built on private pressure. But even as the palace celebrated renewed stability, one final revelation continued circulating behind closed royal doors. According to whispers circulating through royal media circles after the event, the grand celebration may never have been just a celebration at all. Reports suggest the entire evening, from the guest list to the seating arrangements to the timing of Charles's speech, was carefully orchestrated to send one unmistakable message about Prince William's future place within the monarchy. William and Catherine were reportedly positioned with striking prominence throughout the evening, not pushed forward crudely, not announced with blunt force, but placed with the kind of quiet precision the palace has always used when symbolism matters more than explanation. Every movement seemed to carry purpose. Every senior face in the room seemed to understand the deeper language being spoken. Senior military officials and Commonwealth representatives were allegedly briefed in advance, not necessarily on every detail, but enough to recognize that the ceremony was carrying more weight than a normal royal celebration. And that is where the mystery sharpened. Because palace symbolism, according to commentators, appeared to echo historic succession moments from previous reigns, when the monarchy used ceremony not simply to honor the present, but to prepare the public for the future. Royal photographers reportedly focused heavily on William's interactions with Charles and Anne, capturing the triangle that mattered most: the sovereign, the heir, and the iron guardian of tradition. Catherine's role was equally powerful. She was increasingly portrayed not only as William's wife, but as the future queen figure beside him, the calm center of a royal image built around discipline, family, and emotional steadiness. Reports claim the event subtly introduced William as the monarchy's stabilizing force, the man being trusted to hold the institution together when pressure, illness, scandal, and public doubt threatened to pull it apart. Yet insiders suggested this was not a sudden decision born from one difficult season. The announcement may have been years in the making, shaped quietly through family discussions, palace planning, and the slow recognition that William and Catherine had become the crown's strongest bridge to the next generation. The public saw applause. The insiders saw architecture. The palace in this telling had built an entire evening as a future monarchy preview, showing the country who would stand where, who would carry what, and who would matter most when the next chapter finally arrived. That was why the details felt so deliberate. Charles's timing, Anne's presence, Catherine's restraint, William's reluctant acceptance. None of it seemed accidental once the whispers began joining together. And beneath the elegance of the celebration was a sharper truth. The monarchy was teaching the public how to look at William differently, not only as the Prince of Wales, not only as a son, but as the steady figure around whom the institution was already beginning to reorganize itself. And by the end of the night, the meaning behind the announcement had become impossible to ignore. As the final guests departed Buckingham Palace and the grand celebration faded into silence, one reality reportedly remained hanging over the royal household. The monarchy had quietly entered a new era. What began as a single announcement about Prince William had evolved into something far more historic, a public declaration about the future direction of the House of Windsor itself. William emerged from that night with his public stature dramatically elevated, not because he demanded attention, but because the institution had finally placed its confidence around him in a way no one could mistake. The applause had ended, but the message continued echoing through every royal corridor. The future was no longer distant. It was present, visible, and standing beside Catherine. And Catherine's role, once described mainly through loyalty and grace, now seemed far larger. She was increasingly viewed as central to the monarchy's future image, a stabilizing force who gave William's rise emotional depth, human warmth, and public trust. King Charles, according to insiders, felt relieved that the celebration had achieved what private briefings never could. It reassured the nation without making the moment feel like surrender. He had not stepped aside. He had strengthened the line. Princess Anne, still one of William's strongest internal allies, reportedly remained firm in her belief that the crown survives only when duty is placed above comfort, timing, and personal fear. Yet even in triumph, the ending carried suspense. Palace insiders claimed further changes could arrive in the months ahead, as William's expanded role begins to reshape schedules, overseas duties, ceremonial authority, and the quiet balance of power inside the royal household. Public fascination with George, Charlotte, and Louis also intensified worldwide, because when William rises, the next generation becomes part of the story too. Royal commentators called the announcement the beginning of the transition era, a phrase the palace may never officially embrace, but one the public instantly understood. The grand celebration became more than a memory. It became a defining Windsor turning point, the night the monarchy showed the world that its future was being prepared with discipline, emotion, and unmistakable purpose. And in that final silence after the ceremony, the true legacy of the announcement became clear. Charles had offered reassurance. Anne had guarded tradition. Catherine had steadied the future. And William had accepted the burden history had been moving toward him all along. Because in the House of Windsor, the biggest royal moments are never just ceremonies. They are signals of who will carry the crown into the future. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.